The meeting hall was enormous. It floated in space, orbiting a star that belonged to no one. They called it Meridian 7, and it was where the Galactic Council met to discuss important matters. Today, more than 50 alien species had gathered in the Great Chamber. Their representatives sat in curved rows, each group marked by different colors and symbols. Stood near the entrance, adjusting his formal uniform. He was Earth's ambassador, a position he had held for 3 years. The job was not easy. Many aliens looked down on humans, even though Earth had been part of the Council for 30 years now. He glanced at his two companions. Stood to his left, her military uniform crisp and perfect. She was Earth's military advisor, always watching, always thinking about security. On his right was, who handled trade agreements and economic matters. Together, they represented humanity's interests among the stars. Another day of politics, whispered with a slight smile. Let's hope it's a quiet one, replied, though her eyes suggested she doubted it. They walked into the chamber and took their seats. The human section was smaller than most others. Earth had only 12 colonies compared to species that controlled hundreds of worlds, but never let that bother him. Humanity made up for smaller numbers with hard work and intelligence. The council director, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, called the meeting to order. The first topic was boring, something about mineral rights in a distant sector. Listened politely but let his mind wander. Then came the second topic, territorial disputes between the Empire and the Alliance. There were large creatures, almost 3 meters tall, with thick armor-like skin. They controlled a vast empire and considered themselves superior to most species. There were smaller, quick-moving beings who valued trade above all else. Both groups had been arguing for months about some border planets. The representative spoke first, his voice deep and booming. He made demands, insisted on his empire's rights, and dismissed the claims. Then the spoke, quick and sharp, defending their position. The argument went in circles. Finally, raised his hand. Perhaps Earth could mediate this dispute, he offered. We have experience in such matters. The chamber went quiet for a moment. Then the representative laughed. It was not a kind laugh. Ah yes, the humans, he said, his voice dripping with amusement. Always so eager to help. Felt something shift in the air, tensed beside him. The continued, I suppose we should be grateful for their adequate contributions, though one must remember these are merely compensations for their embarrassingly short and primitive emotional instability. Several aliens in the chamber laughed. Some covered their mouths, but others laughed openly. The representative decided to join in. Indeed, she said, her voice high and sharp. Humans are useful servants, certainly. Their medical knowledge helps and their farming techniques are adequate, but they should remember their place among proper spacefaring civilizations. After all, we were exploring the stars while they were still learning to make fire. More laughter filled the chamber, sat perfectly still. His face showed nothing, but inside something cold and hard was forming. Beside him, his jaw tightened. Hands gripped the armrests of his chair. Slowly stood up. The laughter began to fade. Council Director, he said calmly, I request that these statements be entered into the official record. The blue-skinned director looked confused. Ambassador, surely there's no need. I insist, said. His voice was still calm, but something in it made the entire chamber go silent. Let the record show that the Empire and the Alliance have officially declared humanity's contributions to be merely adequate compensation for our primitive nature. Let it show that they have called us servants who must remember our place. The director hesitated, then nodded to a clerk. So recorded. Took a breath. 30 years. For 30 years, humanity had worked alongside these species. Earth had sent its best doctors to fight plagues on alien worlds. Human engineers had built defense systems to protect trade routes. Human farmers had developed crops that could grow on barren planets, feeding billions. Human ships had patrolled dangerous sectors, keeping peace and fighting pirates. Human mediators had stopped wars before they started. And for 30 years, humanity had endured casual insults, dismissive comments, and condescending attitudes. They had smiled and continued working, believing that actions would speak louder than words, believing that eventually they would earn genuine respect. Realized now that he had been wrong. "Earth withdraws," he said clearly. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. The director raised two of his hands. "Ambassador, please clarify." "Earth withdraws from all treaties, all defense pacts, all trade agreements, all research collaborations, and all diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council, effective immediately," said. Each word was precise and final. "We will honor no existing contracts. We will provide no further services. We will maintain no obligations to any council member species." Now the chamber exploded into chaos. Aliens stood, shouting questions and protests. The director tried to restore order. The representative laughed again, though this time it sounded uncertain. "Surely you're joking, Ambassador. This is a negotiation tactic." Looked at him directly. "You assessed humanity's worth. You declared us primitive servants. Very well. We will remove our primitive, adequate contributions so that you may proceed without embarrassment." He turned to and, "We're leaving." They stood together and walked toward the exit. Behind them, the shouting grew louder. The representative called out, "You cannot simply abandon your responsibilities." Stopped at the door. He turned back one last time. "We have no responsibilities to those who view us as servants," he said. "You wanted us to remember our place. We have. Our place is not here." They walked out of the chamber. The door closed behind them, cutting off the sound of panic and confusion. In the corridor let out a long breath. "That was dramatic." "That was necessary," said firmly. "We should have done this years ago." Pulled out his communication device. "Get me Earth Command," he said. "Authorization code Alpha 77, initiate protocol Exodus." On the other end, a voice responded immediately. "Confirmed, Ambassador. Protocol Exodus is active. All human personnel across the galaxy will receive withdrawal orders within the hour." Looked out a viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity's real strength was about to be revealed. These aliens thought humans were useful servants. They were about to discover just how much they had depended on those servants. The Galactic Council had made its choice. Now they would live with the consequences. The emergency message reached every human in the galaxy within 2 hours. From research stations to military outposts, from trading hubs to medical facilities, the order was clear and simple. Come home. Received the message on the bridge of his flagship. He commanded the human defense fleet stationed in the sector, 38 ships protecting trade routes from pirates and raiders. He read the message twice, then smiled. Finally, he thought. Finally, someone had the courage to do what needed doing. "All ships," he announced over the fleet channel, "begin withdrawal procedures. Set course for Earth space. We leave in 3 hours." His second officer looked worried. "Sir, we're currently protecting a merchant convoy. If we leave now." "That's their problem," said simply. "We were never paid for this service anyway. They called it our duty as council members. Well, we're not council members anymore." 3 hours later, the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the trade routes completely undefended. Within a day, pirates attacked the merchant convoy. Without the human ships to stop them, the pirates took everything. The Empire lost billions in goods and 3 ships full of valuable cargo. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Doctor supervised the medical research station on 5. She had been working there for 5 years, leading a team of human researchers who were developing vaccines for a plague affecting several species. When the withdrawal order came, she didn't hesitate. "Pack everything," she told her staff. "Equipment, research data, personal belongings. We leave in 24 hours." The health minister called her personally. "Doctor, please, you cannot leave now. The vaccine is nearly complete. Millions of lives depend on your work. Felt a moment of sympathy, but then she remembered the words spoken in the council chamber. Useful servants, remember your place. I'm sorry, she said, not sorry at all. Perhaps your own scientists can complete the work. After all, you are a proper spacefaring civilization. Surely you don't need primitive humans to solve your problems. She ended the call and continued packing. The research station was emptied within the deadline. They tried to use the equipment, but they quickly discovered that human technology was far more advanced than they had realized. The machines required human-designed interfaces. The data was encrypted with human codes. Even the vaccine formulas used human mathematical models that would take years to decode. The plague continued to spread. Minyu ran the agricultural development program on 7 colony worlds. These were planets with poor soil and harsh conditions. Human scientists had spent years developing special crops that could grow there, feeding over 3 billion aliens. When he received the withdrawal order, he called a meeting with all the human agricultural experts in his network. Leave everything, he instructed. The plants, the equipment, the facilities. Take only your personal research and come home. One of his colleagues protested. But sir, if we leave, those colonies will starve within months. Then perhaps they should have treated us with respect, Minyu replied coldly. They wanted us to remember our place. Now they can remember what happens when we're not there. The human agricultural teams left. The alien colonists tried to maintain the crops, but they didn't understand the complex systems humans had developed. Special fertilizers needed precise mixtures. Irrigation systems required constant adjustment. Within weeks, the crops began to fail. Within 2 months, food shortages began. Back on Earth, coordinated the massive withdrawal effort. He sat in a conference room filled with screens showing data from across the galaxy. Each screen represented another human operation shutting down, another service ending, another system failing without human maintenance. Defense grids offline in 7 sectors, reported one analyst. The Confederacy is panicking. They're reporting that 40% of their planetary defense systems have stopped working. Good, said. Those systems were designed, built, and maintained by human engineers. They never bothered to learn how they worked. Another analyst spoke up. Trade route security is collapsing. We're receiving reports of pirate attacks increasing by 300% in areas we used to patrol. Not our problem anymore, replied. A third screen showed communication, requests flooding in from council species. Hundreds of calls, messages, and pleas for humans to reconsider. Had them all routed to an automated response. Earth is no longer accepting communications from Galactic Council members. Arrived at Earth's orbital command station 3 days after the withdrawal began. She had been humanity's secondary ambassador, stationed at a different council facility. Unlike, she had chosen to send her message before leaving. It was brief and cold. You have made your assessment of humanity clear. We are removing our adequate and primitive contributions so that you may proceed without embarrassment. Do not contact us again. Now she stood in the command center, watching the chaos unfold across the galaxy. How bad is it? She asked. Worse than they expected, he said with grim satisfaction. The Confederacy has lost 60% of its food supply. The economy is crashing because their trade routes are too dangerous without our patrols. The defense systems are offline. 3 minor conflicts have already erupted because we're not there to mediate. And the Council? In emergency session. They've been meeting for 2 days straight. They keep trying to contact Earth, but Fleet Admiral has implemented a complete communications blackout. Nodded, was perfect for the job. He was a military man who understood strategy and patience. He would not be swayed by alien tears or threats. What about independent species? She asked. The ones who didn't insult us. We're maintaining relations with them, confirmed. The people, the Republic, a few others who always treated us with respect. Everyone else is cut off. On the fifth day, the Emperor himself tried to contact Earth. The message was routed through official channels, marked as urgent and important. It reached his desk. "Play it," he said. The hologram showed the massive leader, looking uncomfortable. "Greetings to Earth. I wish to discuss the unfortunate misunderstanding that occurred in the council chamber. Surely we can resolve this diplomatically." Laughed, "Misunderstanding. They call it a misunderstanding." He sent a single-sentence reply. "There was no misunderstanding. We understood perfectly." The council director tried next. His four-armed form appeared in another hologram, looking desperate. "Ambassador, please. The galaxy is falling into chaos. We need Earth's help." His reply was equally brief. "You need servants. We are not servants. Find someone else." By the end of the first week, the situation was critical. Fleet Admiral had positioned human warships around every human colony and station, creating an impenetrable defensive perimeter. No one got in. No one got out without authorization. Earth's borders were sealed. The message was clear. Humanity would not attack, but neither would they be provoked. The galaxy was on its own. Reviewed military reports in Earth's defense headquarters. "They're starting to realize," she said to who had returned to Earth. "For 30 years, we were the ones keeping peace. We were the ones protecting trade. We were the ones mediating conflicts. They thought we did it because we were weak and wanted to please them. And now they know the truth," said quietly. "We did it because we chose to, and now we choose not to." Outside the window, Earth hung in space, beautiful and blue. Somewhere beyond, the galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Humanity had been kind not because they were weak, but because they were strong enough to be kind. They had served not because they were servants, but because they believed in cooperation. The aliens had mistaken kindness for weakness. Now they would discover what humans were really capable of when the kindness stopped. 3 weeks had passed since humanity from the Galactic Council. The galaxy was breaking apart. Stood in an observation deck on Meridian 7, watching the chaos through the massive windows. She was Korean, like many of Earth's ambassadors, but she had chosen to remain at the council station. Not as a representative. Earth no longer had representatives here, but as an observer. Someone needed to witness what was happening and record it for history. The council chamber below was in constant session now. Alien diplomats rushed back and forth, arguing, shouting, pleading. She could see the fear in their movements, the desperation in their voices even through the thick glass. An official approached her. His name was something unpronounceable, so she just called him the minister. "Please," he begged, not for the first time. "You must speak to your people. The plague on Maya is spreading. Without doctors' vaccine, millions will die." Looked at him coldly. "I'm not a council member," she said. "I'm simply an observer cataloging this historical moment. However, I do remember what your representative said. What was it? Ah, yes. Useful servants who should remember their place. Perhaps your proper spacefaring civilization can solve this without primitive humans." The minister's face fell. He walked away defeated. Another approached, a diplomat. There were plant-like beings who needed massive amounts of food to survive. Their population was enormous, and their own worlds couldn't produce enough to feed everyone. For 20 years, human agricultural technology had kept them alive. "Our people are starving," they said quietly. 3 billion on our colony worlds. The crops have failed. We tried to maintain the human systems, but we don't understand them. Please at least give us the information. We'll pay anything." "Earth doesn't want your money," replied. "Earth wanted respect. You couldn't provide that, so now we can't provide food. It's a simple exchange." She turned away before she could feel sympathy. That was the hardest part of this job, watching people suffer and doing nothing. But she reminded herself why this was happening. 30 years of insults. 30 years of being treated as lesser beings. 30 years of humanity swallowing their pride and continuing to help. It had to end somewhere. The economic damage was catastrophic, had sent her regular reports. The Empire's economy had shrunk by 40%. Without human protection, their trade ships were constantly attacked by pirates. Insurance costs had. Several major corporations had gone bankrupt. The alliance was even worse. Their entire economy was built on trade, and trade required safe routes. Human patrol fleets had guaranteed that safety for 3 decades. Now those routes were war zones. Merchant ships traveled in armed convoys if they traveled at all. Prices had skyrocketed. 3 worlds were experiencing riots over food shortages. But the worst situation was military. The Confederacy had discovered that their entire planetary defense system was essentially human technology. Human engineers had designed it, built it, and maintained it. They had paid for it, certainly, but they had never bothered to learn how it actually worked. Now 40% of their defense grid was offline. The remaining 60% was degrading fast without proper maintenance, and they had enemies, old enemies who were starting to notice the weakness. A war was coming, everyone could feel it. His communication device buzzed. It was a message from on Earth. She read it and smiled grimly. The council was about to discover that things could get even worse. In the council chamber, the director was trying desperately to maintain order. Representatives from over 40 species were all talking at once, each describing their own crisis, each demanding that Earth be forced to return. "We should send a military fleet to Earth," suggested a representative. They were a warrior species, aggressive and proud. Show these humans that they cannot defy the council. Several others agreed. The idea gained support. Send ships, demand compliance. Humans were weak, everyone knew that. This whole withdrawal was just a bluff. The director hesitated. Something about this felt wrong, but the pressure was enormous. Finally, he agreed to send a message to Earth, not threatening military action directly, but strongly suggesting that compliance was required. The response came from Fleet Admiral himself. It was broadcast to the entire council chamber, displayed on every screen, translated into every language. "This is Fleet Admiral of Earth Defense Command. Your message has been received and rejected. Earth maintains its withdrawal from all council obligations. Any military approach to human space will be considered an act of war and will be met with appropriate force. This is your only warning." The representative laughed. "Empty threats from a species with a small fleet. We have thousands of warships. Humans have what, a few hundred?" Watching from the observation deck shook her head. "You idiot," she whispered. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." That night the Empire made its move. Not directly at Earth, they weren't quite that foolish, but at a human outpost on the edge of human territory. A small station with only a few hundred people and 3 patrol ships for defense. It should have been an easy target. They sent 20 warships, heavy cruisers, well-armed and well-trained. They expected to overwhelm the station quickly, capture it, and use it as leverage to force Earth back to the negotiating table. They jumped into the system at 400 station time. The human patrol ships detected them immediately and sent out a distress call. The commander gave the humans one chance to surrender. The human response was simple: no. The battle lasted 40 minutes. When it was over, all 20 ships were disabled. Not destroyed, humans had carefully targeted engines and weapon systems, leaving life support intact. Not a single was killed, but every single ship was helpless, drifting in space. The 3 human patrol ships hadn't even been damaged. The crews were rescued, given medical care, and sent home with a message: "We are not your enemies, but we are not your servants. Attack us again and the results will be less gentle." The galaxy was stunned. How had 3 small patrol ships defeated 20 warships? They were experienced fighters. Their ships were powerful. What had happened? A scientist on Earth watched the battle recordings and smiled. She knew the answer. For decades, humanity had been quietly developing technology far beyond what they showed the galaxy. They had advanced AI systems that could predict enemy movements. They had weapons that fired faster and hit harder. They had shields that could absorb incredible damage. They had been hiding their true capabilities, downplaying their advancement to avoid alarming other species. Humans had learned from history that being too strong made others afraid, and fear led to conflict. So they had pretended to be weaker than they were, hoping that cooperation and friendship would be enough. It hadn't been, so now the galaxy would see the truth. Had been authorized to release previously classified research. She published papers on human AI development, showing systems decades ahead of what anyone else had achieved. She released data on human quantum engines, which could power ships twice as fast as standard drives. She shared medical breakthroughs that could cure diseases thought incurable. The galaxy read these papers in shock. Humans weren't just useful, they were the most technologically advanced species in the Council. They had been all along. They had simply hidden it. Recorded a message that was broadcast across every Council channel. His face appeared on screens throughout the galaxy. He looked calm, professional, but his words were ice cold. For 30 years, humanity served the Galactic Council. We protected your trade routes, healed your sick, fed your hungry, and mediated your conflicts. We did this not because we were weak, but because we believed in cooperation. We believed in building something better together. He paused, letting the words sink in. You called us primitive. You mocked our emotions, our empathy, our compassion. Those emotions are what made us help you despite receiving nothing but condescension in return. You mistook our kindness for weakness. You thought our service meant servitude. Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice was harder. That ends now. Earth will maintain relations with species who treat us with respect. For the rest of you, you are on your own. You wanted to see what the galaxy looks like without primitive, emotional humans helping you. Look around. This is your galaxy now. We hope you enjoy it. The broadcast ended. In the council chamber, silence fell like a physical weight. They had made a terrible mistake, and now they were paying the price. The question was, how much more would they have to pay before Earth forgave them? And more importantly, would Earth ever forgive them at all? The situation grew worse with every passing day. 6 weeks after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy was in crisis. But the council species still did not understand the depth of their mistake. The Emperor called an emergency meeting of the council's major powers. Representatives from 12 species gathered in a secure chamber on Meridian 7. The topic was simple: how to force Earth back into the council. They are being unreasonable, the Emperor declared. His massive form dominated the room. One insult and they abandoned the entire galaxy. This is childish behavior. A official agreed. They are punishing billions for the words of 2 representatives. This is not justice. This is revenge. Others nodded. They had convinced themselves that humanity was being petty, that the withdrawal was an overreaction. None of them seemed to understand that the insult was just the final drop in an ocean of disrespect. Heard about the meeting later. She recorded it in her journal. They still don't get it. They think this is about one insult. They don't realize it was about 30 years of being treated as less than equal. The insult just made it impossible to ignore anymore. Meanwhile, on Earth was dealing with a different problem. Several species that had remained neutral during the initial conflict were now approaching humanity with offers of alliance. They had seen the defeat. They understood that Earth was powerful. Now they wanted to be on the winning side. The Republic requests a formal alliance, reported one of her assistants. They offer military cooperation and exclusive trade agreements. Considered this. Though we're a decent species, they had never been cruel to humans, though they had never defended them either. They had simply stayed quiet when others insulted Earth. "Tell them we'll consider it," she said. "But we need more than just offers. We need proof that they respect us as equals." The assistant nodded and left, turned to who had come to discuss strategy. "What do you think? Should we start accepting allies?" "Eventually," replied. "But not yet. The galaxy needs to understand that our respect cannot be bought. It must be earned." He was right, of course. If Earth accepted alliances too quickly, others would think humanity could be manipulated. The withdrawal had to mean something. It had to change the fundamental nature of how aliens viewed humans. In the Confederacy, disaster struck. A neighboring empire called that had been watching the defense grid failures with great interest. The N had been enemies for centuries, only kept in check by mutual defense capabilities and human mediation. Now they were weak, and there were no human mediators to negotiate peace. The fleet attacked 3 border worlds simultaneously. The defense grid tried to respond, but with 40% of systems offline and no one who understood how to properly operate the rest, the defense was chaotic and ineffective. Within a week, they had conquered all 3 worlds. The government sent an emergency message to Earth, begging for help. They offered enormous sums of money, technology exchanges, anything Earth wanted. The response from Fleet Admiral was brief: "Not our problem." The war spread. Other species saw the weakness and decided to settle old grudges. They attacked from another direction. They raided trade ships. Within 2 weeks, the Confederacy was fighting on 4 fronts, losing badly on all of them. The Council tried to organize a peacekeeping force, but without human coordination, it was a disaster. 5 different species all wanted to lead. No one could agree on strategy. 3 ships from different Council species actually fired on each other by accident because their communication protocols weren't compatible. The peacekeeping force dissolved in chaos before it even reached the conflict zone. Watching all this felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because the galaxy was finally realizing what they had lost. Sadness because people were dying in a war that humans could have prevented. But she reminded herself, this was necessary. Humanity couldn't keep sacrificing themselves for people who despised them. Sometimes you had to let things break before you could build something better. On 5, the plague that Doctor had been working on continued to spread. The government had tried to complete her vaccine research, but they couldn't understand the complex human biochemistry involved. Millions were now infected. Thousands were dying every day. The health minister sent a personal message too. It was desperate, begging, offering her anything she wanted if she would just come back and finish the vaccine. Read the message in her apartment on Earth. For a moment, she felt the old urge to help. She was a doctor. Helping people was what she did. But then she remembered standing in the council chamber gallery, watching as the representative called humans useful servants. She deleted the message without responding. That same day, received an interesting communication. It came from the Emperor himself, marked as a personal apology. The Emperor stated that the insult had been regrettable, that the representative had been punished, and that the Empire wished to restore relations with Earth. Read it carefully. Then he read it again, looking for any sign of genuine understanding. He didn't find it. The apology focused on the insult being regrettable and unfortunate, but never acknowledged that it reflected a deeper problem. The Emperor was sorry about the consequences, not sorry about the attitude that caused them. He drafted a response. Earth appreciates the Emperor's message. However, we cannot accept apologies that focus on regrettable consequences rather than regrettable beliefs. The representative who insulted us did not speak alone. He spoke with the confidence of someone expressing widely held views. Until those views change fundamentally, words of apology are meaningless. He sent it and waited to see if the Emperor would understand. He doubted it. Meanwhile, on the trade routes, Piracy had become so bad that merchants refused to travel at all. The economy was in free fall. 3 colonies had declared independence, claiming the empire could no longer protect them. The military tried to restore order, but without the human support they had relied on for decades, they were spread too thin. The empire was collapsing from within. Similar patterns played out across the galaxy. The Confederacy was facing mass starvation. The alliance was fragmenting as member worlds blamed each other for the crisis. Smaller species that had depended on council protection were being conquered by larger neighbors. The Galactic Council, which had maintained peace and stability for over 300 years, was falling apart, and it had taken only 6 weeks without humanity to reveal how fragile it had always been. Watched the news reports with grim satisfaction. She had argued for years that humanity needed to take a harder stance, that kindness without respect was just exploitation. Now everyone could see she had been right. But she also knew this couldn't last forever. Eventually, Earth would need to re-engage with the galaxy. The question was on what terms and with whom. That decision would come soon. For now, though, the galaxy needed to truly understand what it had lost. They needed to feel the absence of human protection, human medicine, human food, human mediation, human technology. They needed to know that humans weren't servants. Humans were the glue that had held their civilization together. On the 75th day after withdrawal, something shifted. The people, who had defended humanity during the original insult, requested a private meeting with Earth's government. They didn't come with demands or offers. They came with a simple message. We were wrong to stay silent for so long. We should have defended you louder and more often. We want to make that right. Met with them personally. Unlike other species, they offered no money, no trade deals, no military alliances. They simply offered friendship between equals and a promise to stand with humanity in the council, whether Earth returned or not. Why now? Asked them. The ambassador was honest. Because we finally understand what you've been trying to teach the galaxy for 30 years. That strength without compassion is tyranny, but compassion without respect is exploitation. You showed us both parts of that lesson, the hard part and the kind part. Studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled. Earth will consider your offer, and please tell your people this. They were the only ones who spoke for us when it mattered. We won't forget that. The left and returned to her office. She drafted a memo to the Earth Council. First crack in the wall, some are beginning to understand. The galaxy was learning, but they still had further to fall before they truly grasped the lesson, and humanity would make sure they learned it completely. 6 months had passed since humanity from the Galactic Council. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The empire had fractured into 7 smaller states. The plague on 5 had killed over 30 million before finally burning itself out. The Confederacy had lost half its territory to various enemies. Dozens of smaller wars raged across space where human mediators would have once negotiated peace. The council itself barely functioned. Without human coordination, meetings descended into chaos. Without human technology, their systems kept failing. Without human protection, they were vulnerable. Had watched it all from her observation deck. She had recorded everything, filling hundreds of data files with footage, interviews, and analysis. This would be studied for centuries, the moment when humanity said, enough, and the galaxy nearly destroyed itself in response. On Earth, the government was in session. Stood at the center of the council chamber, presenting his assessment. Around him sat the leaders of humanity, both military and civilian, debating what to do next. We've made our point, said one representative. The galaxy knows we're not servants. Maybe it's time to help them rebuild. They haven't earned it yet, countered another. They're only sorry because they're suffering. That's not the same as understanding why they were wrong. Stood to speak. We've received formal requests from 47 different species. Most are just begging for help, but 7 have offered genuine apologies and fundamental changes to how they view humanity. 7 out of 53 council members noted, "That's not enough." The debate continued for hours. Some wanted to maintain the withdrawal indefinitely. Others worried about the death toll if humanity stayed isolated much longer. Everyone agreed on one thing: if Earth returned to the galaxy, it would be as equals or not at all. That evening, a special delegation arrived at Earth's orbital station. It was led by the people who had maintained their friendship with humanity throughout the crisis. But they weren't alone. Representatives from 6 other species came with them. These 6 species had done something remarkable. They had spent the last 3 months dismantling the power structures that had allowed humans to be treated as lesser beings. They had rewritten their own laws, changed their council voting procedures, and formally apologized not just to Earth's government, but to individual humans they had wronged. The Republic had tracked down every human who had worked in space over the last 30 years and sent them personal letters of apology and gratitude. They had built a monument on there listing the names of every human who had helped their species. Small gestures, perhaps, but they showed genuine understanding. Met with the delegation in a formal reception hall. She didn't smile or show warmth. This was business, and Earth would not be swayed by sentiment. "You've come to ask us to return," she said. It wasn't a question. The ambassador nodded. "We have, but not the way things were. We're proposing a completely new structure for the Galactic Council, one where Earth has equal voting power with the largest empires, where human technology and knowledge is paid for fairly, where insults to any member species result in automatic sanctions." He paused, then continued. "We're also proposing that the Council formally apologize to humanity and agree to build a permanent memorial on Meridian 7, a reminder of what happens when we forget to respect each other." Listened carefully. "And what about the species that haven't changed, the ones who are still just sorry they're suffering?" "They won't be part of the new council," said the representative. "We're proposing to rebuild from the ground up. Only species that accept the new terms, including equal treatment of all members, will be included. If they or want to join, they'll have to prove they've changed." It was a radical proposal. Essentially, they wanted to abandon the old council and create something new, something built on mutual respect instead of power hierarchies. Excused herself and went to consult with and the Earth leadership. They discussed through the night. By morning, they had reached a decision. The delegation was called back. This time spoke. "Earth will agree to rejoin galactic society under the following conditions. First, formal recognition of Earth as a sovereign equal power, never to be treated as subordinate to any other species. Second, reparations from the Empire and Alliance for 30 years of disrespect and underpayment for services. Third, human leadership positions in all council security and medical divisions. Fourth, a permanent memorial on Meridian 7 acknowledging humanity's contributions. And fifth, permanent veto power for Earth on any council decisions that affect human interests." The terms were harsh. They were meant to be. This wasn't just about returning to the status. This was about fundamentally changing the nature of galactic civilization. The ambassador didn't hesitate. "We accept all terms on behalf of our coalition. We'll present them to the other species." Over the next month, the new Galactic Accord was negotiated and finalized. 22 species agreed to the terms and formed what they called the Alliance of Equals. Each species had one vote regardless of size or power. Humans held leadership positions in key areas. The memorial was designed, a massive sculpture showing humans reaching out to help others, with the names of every human who had died serving other species carved into its base. But not everyone agreed. The Empire, or what was left of it, refused the terms. They saw them as humiliating, as punishment rather than justice. The Alliance similarly rejected the accord. They would rather stay isolated than admit they had been fundamentally wrong. Fine, Earth said, let them stay isolated. The old Galactic Council officially dissolved. The new alliance of equals took its place, smaller but stronger, built on genuine cooperation rather than enforced hierarchy. On the day the accord was signed, returned to Meridian 7 for the first time in 6 months. The council chamber had been renovated. Where once the largest empires had sat in prominent positions, now all species sat in a circle, no one above anyone else. He stood at the podium and delivered the speech that would be remembered for generations. 6 months ago, I stood in this chamber and heard humanity called primitive servants. I walked out, and humanity followed. We didn't do this because we were offended. We did it because we finally understood that trying to earn respect through service alone is impossible. Respect must be freely given, or it means nothing. He looked around at the assembled representatives. Some avoided his gaze, ashamed. Others met his eyes with understanding. We didn't want dominance. We never wanted to be above you. We wanted to be with you as equals, building something better together. You forced us to show you our true strength, not to conquer you, but to teach you a lesson. That lesson was this: humanity will always extend a hand in friendship, but insult that hand, and you'll discover what we're capable of when we close it into a fist. The chamber was silent. Today, we extend that hand again. This time, we do so knowing that the species here have earned the right to take it. We rebuild together as equals, or we don't rebuild at all. He signed the accord. One by one, the other ambassadors came forward and added their signatures. Watched from the gallery, smiling slightly. It had taken the near destruction of galactic civilization, but humanity had finally achieved what 30 years of patient service could not: genuine respect. In the medical section of the new Alliance headquarters, Doctor was back at work. But this time, she worked on her own terms, paid fairly, treated with respect. She was developing new vaccines, but also training alien doctors properly, ensuring they understood the science rather than just depending on humans. Commanded a joint fleet now, ships from multiple species working together under human tactical leadership. The pirates had learned to avoid Alliance space entirely. Minu coordinated agricultural programs again, but with proper funding and recognition. His work was saving billions, and now they actually thanked him for it. As for the Empire and the Alliance, they watched from the outside, seeing the new Alliance thrive while they continued to struggle. Their pride had cost them everything. 2 years later, the government finally collapsed. A new leadership took over, one that understood the mistakes of the past. They formally apologized to humanity and requested admission to the Alliance of Equals. Earth made them wait 5 years before accepting, not out of cruelty, but to ensure they truly understood what they had done wrong. Eventually, they did, and when they were finally admitted, they found themselves in a galaxy transformed. A galaxy where strength and compassion worked together, where serving others was honored rather than exploited, where respect flowed in all directions. Published her historical record of the withdrawal. It became required reading for all diplomatic students across the galaxy. The lesson was clear: never mistake kindness for weakness, never treat your helpers as servants, and never, ever insult the ones who hold your civilization together. Humanity had tried peace and cooperation first. When that failed, they showed the galaxy what happens when humans stop being kind. The lesson was learned. The galaxy would never forget. And in a quiet office on Earth, read reports of the new alliance succeeding beyond anyone's expectations. Species working together as true equals, sharing knowledge and resources, building something genuinely better. He smiled. It had taken a hard lesson, but the galaxy had finally learned. Humanity had wanted to be part of something greater. Now they were, not as servants, not as helpers, but as leaders among equals. The galaxy was finally ready for what humans had been trying to teach them all along. that the measure of civilization is not in how strong you are, but in how you treat those who help you. And humanity, they had shown the galaxy both sides of human nature, the capacity for endless compassion and the capacity for ruthless strength. The message was simple: we choose compassion but never think we can't choose otherwise. The lesson was learned, the galaxy changed, and humanity at last found the respect they had always deserved.